Hey guys, how's it going? It is Eve, and well, EVE Vanguard First Strike has recently come to an end, and in my opinion, it has been a great improvement from Dust 514 that released way back on the PlayStation 3 many years ago. EVE Vanguard First Strike, well, it does have its bugs, it does have its fair share of issues right now that, well, with the feedback from the players and this video, hopefully CCP will be able to fix for the next iteration. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the pros, the cons, and the suggestions that CCP should take into consideration while moving forward with Vanguard. Whether some items on this list are either planned or still have to be implemented or are implemented in a different build remains to be seen. So without further ado, let's get started with the pros. We're going to start off with performance. Performance of EVE Vanguard First Strike was amazing, to say the least. Despite the game being so detailed as it is, for being an alpha build, it ran great. The environment had a lot of effects. Fire effects, cryogenic liquid effects. Didn't feel like all that was hindering your performance. Mind you, I am playing on a very high-end computer, an i9-13900K paired with a 4090. But needless to say, what I have been looking around on other feedback forums or Reddit posts and Discord associated with the game, everyone is pretty much in consensus that this game ran phenomenally despite being an alpha build. CCP has done a fantastic job when it comes to that. So next up, we'll talk about gunplay. The gunplay, despite it all players having the exact same gun, it was very well balanced, and I enjoyed using this particular gun. I found personally it excelled more at close range combat than it really did at medium range combat that CCP claims it said it excelled at. Combat was just atrocious with this gun, but that is to be really expected. It's more of a SMG, not quite assault rifle type of weapon. The scope on this gun was great, real clear line of sight, and it told you what you needed to know. It told you where the enemies are, it told you how much ammo you have. It was fantastic. However, we'll be touching base on the scope a little bit later in the negative section because I have some feedback for CCP when it comes to this scope. Recoil control on this gun, I actually don't really notice the recoil all that much. It just might be a side effect from playing a lot of FPS where you automatically start to control it. But I found the gun to be very accurate despite the amount of recoil, and overall being fun to play with at close range combat more so than medium range combat. Based on the scope now. The scope, despite being good, telling you exactly what you need to know, it has a target acquisition range that is too great for the type of scope that it is. This holographic scope acted more of a way to track players or NPCs for extremely long ranges, despite this gun only being a close range or medium range type of firearm. If the scope had more of a range where it could only pick up people, for example, within like 10 meters of it or more, then it would be a much better scope, and you won't be having to use it or rely on it to scan the environment to see where certain enemies are or other players are. So my suggestion to CCP is to actually nerf the scope's range. Allow it to acquire targets closer to the player than further away. This is an assault rifle or SMG. To put it simply, it's not a sniper rifle, so it should reflect that with its scope. So next up is the menus within the Vanguard. This is an alpha build. I'm not expecting much. There's a lot of stuff that is implemented into the game like an ISK system, but we have no way to spend ISK. That isn't really an issue for this specific build. That's definitely coming later on. The menus were very easy to find and to navigate. It did take me a little bit to figure out the settings, that it was kind of hidden away at the top, and then the red X on the bottom right signified escape. Maybe if there was a more clear way to exit the game and enter your settings, it'd be more of a greater user experience. But for what it is to just open the game and load into a match, it was very easy to navigate. Even inside the game, the craftables, the equipment tabs, they were pretty good. I do have some issues when it came to the menus themselves. For example, contracts. You press caps lock on your keyboard, it opens up your menu, you get 3 options for contracts. You press number 1, it tells you about the mission, you press F to select it, and off to the races you go with that specific contract. When it comes to crafting, you can now use your mouse. I believe if you are going to have a system where your menus are either controlled by number keys or your mouse, it should be uniform between every single type of menu or user interface side. There shouldn't be a this menu uses 1, 2, 3 on your number pad, this one uses your mouse, and using this one somehow requires you to play stuff in game. It should be uniform. So either CCP should stay with the 1, 2, 3 option, like in the contracts, or go to using your mouse. Personally, from a PC standpoint, I believe the mouse is the more superior option to go with. It's much quicker, it's more responsive, and it gets the job done a lot faster. That being said, the menus also had some response issues that I've discovered, especially in the contract manager. Sometimes you would go and press number 1 for a certain contract and it just won't open. I've actually pressed it, and it's happened to me, this is more of a bug, that I went and pressed number 1 twice and actually accepted that specific contract. So there's still definitely some work and improvements in the menu system. So my suggestion to CCP is to actually unify the menus. Either have them use numbers on your number pad or your number line, or use the mouse. Don't necessarily have a hybrid of the two. It can get very confusing, and especially if you're getting into larger scale battles with more players or bigger squads, it is definitely nice to have a quick way to interact with the menu and not really kind of be like, oh, it's this type of menu, I gotta do this. So once again, unify the menus. Don't have them to be 2 different types. So next up we're going to talk about is the crafting. The crafting in the game is pretty well done. This is a game where it's more like Tarkov, where you load in, you have to find your supplies, you have to craft the item, use it for a specific contract, and then exfil. So that part I have no issues with. The issues I actually have with crafting is that there really is no way to quick craft. If you wanted to quick craft some ammo, you had to open up the crafting menu, click on ammo, click on the type of ammo you wanted, and then you crafted it. Mind you, crafting still was automatic, it kind of happened in the background. That's great, but I do believe there should be a way to craft quickly as a quick craft option or something like that, especially if you're going into some crazy engagements where opening that menu might signal life or death for you. That said, some of the items crafting were kind of difficult to come by. There were interface components that are actually pretty difficult to acquire inside of EVE Vanguard. You either have to go to a loot field and run around for a while to discover the items in the boxes, or you find them in chests. And there's quite a few craftable items for the contracts that do require those items. Mind you, it does increase the game play time, but it also does kind of kill it in a way where you could be running around for a very long time, almost exhausting your entire clone duration just looking for these items. So my thing or suggestion to CCP would be maybe to buff some of the drops for crafting and actually decrease some. For example, like electronic components were extremely common, where I believe more nanites should be a little more common than they actually are. So next up, we're going to talk about NPCs. There were 3 types, or actually 4 types of NPCs that I've encountered during my time in EVE Vanguard. The first ones were the white suited NPCs. These NPCs were mainly around nanite mining areas. And those were fantastic. Those NPCs awarded you for not killing them. In terms of they would mine up some nanites, they'd put them down for you to take in order to craft ammo and stuff like that. The other types were the yellow and blue suited NPCs. Those ones I found actually roamed around the map. They were inside of loot fields, so loot fields actually had risk when you were looting containers, or they were protecting certain objectives like the bank station that's on screen right now. You had to clear them out in order to get what you wanted. This wasn't an NPC that you could just let be. This NPC was dangerous. It like I said before, it would either take you out or it would help you. In this case, it would take you out if you failed. The third type were the ones inside the cloning chamber. These ones had a different suit, and I found to be way more aggressive than the previous NPCs. They were very difficult to deal with and had a lot of outputting DPS. I personally wasn't really able to deal with them. The second one of them starts shooting at you, all 3 of them would start shooting, and well, you'd be a firing squad. Otherwise, NPCs were fantastic. I do have one gripe, and that is the biomass. In order to heal yourself in EVE Vanguard, or to buy yourself a new clone, or a squad life in other words, you needed biomass. Every NPC on kill dropped 25 biomass. And when you loot that 25 biomass, the container remains on the ground. And many times, even in the video you're watching on screen right now, you can see that I go and loot the 0 biomass container, even though the one beside it had the 25, but I digress. You pick up your 25, that container stays on the ground. It should be where if you kill that NPC and you loot the biomass that they drop, it should despawn the container also. This is something that CCP will probably fix in January, but we have yet to see. But that is kind of my only issue when it came to NPCs. I did forget to mention one set of NPCs, and those are the turrets that are kind of spread throughout the map. They are aimbots because they're a turret. That's fine. My issue with them is that they don't drop anything. A turret should at least drop some type of mechanical part or some type of craftable item that awards you for taking out that turret. The turrets were great that they basically gave your position away if you were walking around. But there should be a reward for taking them out. Like I said, a mechanical part or some type of craftable item that you would need for a later contract or later on in your specific mission. The next thing I would like to talk about is the environment itself. This map is based around a crashed bowhead freighter. And, well, the environment is amazing. However, there are instances throughout my time of playing EVE Vanguard where the collision was pretty bad. I was able to, not fall into the map, but get stuck on stuff that I shouldn't have been getting stuck on. Definitely some collision issues here or there. There's also apparently a picture that I found off of Reddit where you can actually clip into the geometry of certain rocks, and then, well, you're invincible and you can shoot out of it. So hopefully CCP will be able to fix some of the geometry issues of the map. Apart from that, everything was great about the map. It really had the notion that the map was alive, that the wreckage was still settling after crashing onto this planet. And that really did wonders. However, I would feel like the map should be maybe a little bit more closed off. This wreckage did seem a little too open in my opinion. But regardless, the environment was fantastic and we'll see what CCP does going forward. The next thing I'd like to talk about is contracts. The contracts had a very diverse variety of objectives for you to do. However, a lot of them kind of had the same concept in mind. Go to a certain location, loot an item or loot something or transmit something, and either you finish it or you have to go and drop it off in a container. That's all fine, and it really added to you exploring the map. There were certain ones where, for example, where you had to reroute power. Those ones, the game never told you where the item is, and that was great. I love that. It adds to the exploration of the game. It rewards you for looking into areas you didn't think you could go into. And, well, it naturally induces conflict between players and NPCs. A lot of the contracts in this version of the game had us go into the main cloning chamber, and most of our engagements would take place in there. As you saw earlier in the video, we did one of the missions was called Desecration. I had, as much as an easy mission or contract as it was, it had an issue. When you were going to the NPC that is lying there to pick up the decryptor node, if you hover your crosshair over the node, you can't pick it up. But if you hover it over the body and kind of wiggle your mouse around, then all of a sudden it switches from being empty to showing it has a node. And this is where it should become a lot more uniform too. CCP should make it so that if it is a contract objective to loot something, it should have a very specific inventory only for that item, not have the game treated as if it was a NPC or a player that you have just taken out and you're trying to loot the body and not the item. It should, like I said, have a separate inventory. That side, the missions were both great in length as they were in exploration. A lot of missions were quick, jump in, 5-6 minutes, boom, we're done. The other missions took longer. You had to go find certain items to craft relays, for example, in order to transmit items. Everything had risk, and with that risk came reward in terms of ISK that for in this current build of EVE Vanguard we were unable to use. But I will not be taking that into consideration, as this is an early build and everything we say, everything we help with going forward will only help to improve the game. So for right now, that wraps up my thoughts about EVE Vanguard. It's a fantastic game. It's going in a great direction, and I'm excited to see what game modes, what new missions, or how this game is going to evolve going forward, and how it will tie more into the EVE universe than it currently does. Right now, it's pretty bare bones for its tie-in, but that said, it's going in the proper direction. Hopefully, CCP does have some tricks up their sleeve when it comes to January. It has been confirmed that sometime in January, we will be able to play EVE Vanguard again, maybe with a new refreshed build of the game. So that is it for this video, guys. Fly dangerous, and we'll be covering EVE Vanguard once again in January. Peace.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. You guys can check out my other previous videos by clicking the two thumbnails on screen right now. And if you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Fly dangerous. Peace.